This is something I never wanted to see, and honestly something that I thought I never would see. GameFreak has actually come out and openly admitted that Pokemon has become less of a priority within the company. Now, if you've been watching my videos recently, you'll know I've been advancing a theory about why exactly there are so many problems with Pokemon Sword and Shield. And it basically has to do with GameFreak becoming less important to the Pokemon company, and therefore GameFreak is focusing more on other projects instead of Pokemon. If you haven't seen those videos, make sure to watch them so you have a full understanding of what's going on before watching this video. Now, up until today, up until this video, this has all been kind of a theory. Something that I've observed, carefully worked on, and gathered evidence for using principles of logical deduction, the observation of trends, some stats, business understanding, and just generally putting all the pieces together. However, GameFreak, obviously like many other game developers, although perhaps more than most, keeps its inner workings in a tight wrap. Not many people know how the company works and what's currently going on inside it, since that would of course spoil game elements and might expose trade secrets for other competing developers to take advantage of. That makes it very hard to understand exactly what's going on within the company itself, but I've worked really hard to try and gain an understanding in order for us, the fans, to know what's going on and try to raise the issues and propose solutions for the sake of our favorite franchise. But while doing research to add on evidence for this theory, I stumbled upon something that I did not expect to find. A rather hidden interview with GameFreak detailing many previously unknown things about the company's current operations. The interview was posted about a month ago by Video Games Chronicle, a site that I've personally never visited until now, and haven't seen anyone else discussing this anywhere. There aren't even any comments whatsoever on the article itself. I only found it through extensive searching while trying to find out GameFreak's kind of mindset leading into Sword and Shield. The reason that this interview flew under the radar is likely that it features a relatively unknown member of GameFreak, or at least compared to those like Masuda and Omori, named Masayuki Inoue, a programmer who has worked on the Pokemon games since Black and White, and who also worked on some side games for GameFreak. The interview was likely also overshadowed by the Pokemon Direct and E3 that happened immediately after it was posted. In the interview, Inoue talks about the organizational structure of GameFreak, its current focus and priorities, and discusses a secret project called the Gear Project. In the process, he gives us direct proof of what I've been saying for the past few weeks, and there's one part that will probably blow your mind and shock you just as much as it did to me. But without any further ado, let's get into the content of the interview. The article starts off by saying Pokemon developer GameFreak is increasingly prioritizing original game creation in order to grow the experience of its staff, which is exactly the Gear Project's aim apparently. Now, growing experience of newer staff has been a focal point of GameFreak's policies for a little while now, since the company is growing older after having been around for 30 years. We saw this, for instance, when GameFreak assigned its junior development team to creating Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon shortly after Sun and Moon were released, while the senior development team was tasked with starting to develop Pokemon Sword and Shield. Inoue next says that by taking breaks from its flagship Pokemon series, GameFreak's creators can return to the franchise refreshed and improve the series with experience gained. Now, this is something that isn't entirely new to us. We know that GameFreak has worked on a few other games in the past since Pokemon has been around, with a few examples being Harmonite, Pocket Card Jockey, and Giga Wrecker. Given that new main series Pokemon games come out pretty much every year, and especially recently, I've always found this to be a little bit weird, since you'd likely want to invest all your resources into what's touching the lives of the most people and what is most profitable. And taking several breaks to work on other things just doesn't seem to make sense with such a rapidly released series of games. But hey, burnout is a real thing. I can understand the odd diversion to try to get the creative juices flowing, so long as it doesn't substantially impact or harm Pokemon. The key word here, though, is that he said GameFreak is increasingly prioritizing original game creation. If we look at each 5-year period since the creation of Pokemon in 1995, we can see that the number of non-Pokemon main series games they've created has steadily increased to an unreasonable level. From 1995 to 1999, they created 3 side games, with 2 in 96 and 97, mainly because Pokemon wasn't a huge thing during their development yet, of course. From 2000 to 2004, they created 0 other side games. 2005 to 2009, they created 1. 2010 to 2014, they created 2. And 2015 to 2019, they've created 5. So basically, in each 5-year period since Pokemon blew up and became incredibly popular, it's been 0, 1, 2, and then 5 side games. Interestingly, right as the side games started really sprouting, that's when many fans started reaching a general consensus with regard to a general decrease in the quality of the games, right around X and Y in 2013, then with Sun and Moon, Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, and of course, Let's Go. But in addition to all of this, listen to the next thing that Inoue says, which absolutely shocked and infuriated me personally. There are two different production teams here, simply named Production Team 1 and Production Team 2. Team 1 is fully dedicated to Gear Project, while Team 2 is for the Pokemon operation. What this means is that GameFreak as a company is prioritizing Gear Project, which is Production Team number 1, more than Pokemon in general. We are always trying to create something that is equally exciting or more exciting than Pokemon. Wow. To this, I have no idea what to say. I am absolutely dumbfounded. A GameFreak employee actually came out and straight up said that the company prioritizes side games more than Pokemon itself, which is what the company is known for. This is exactly what I've been saying all along, and it just so happens that GameFreak announced its biggest side game project of all time about 8 months before this interview was posted. How interesting. This is especially ridiculous if you consider how much more of an impact the Pokemon games have made on people's lives and how much more people love it than any other game that GameFreak has ever made, even in their early days before Pokemon. In fact, GameFreak's best-selling side game ever has been Yoshi for the Game Boy, which sold 3.1 million copies and was released 5 years before Red and Green came out in Japan. Comparatively, GameFreak's worst-selling main series Pokemon game of all time was Pokemon Crystal, which sold more than double that at 6.4 million. In total, main series Pokemon games have sold over 250 million copies, meaning that Pokemon accounts for over 97% of GameFreak's all-time sales, even though they were in business making games 6 years before Pokemon even came out. Not only is GameFreak apparently prioritizing the Gear Project and its side games, but it's also working on its most massive side game to date concurrently with Sword and Shield, Town, a fully developed RPG for the Switch that in my opinion looks better graphically than Sword and Shield, and that I think we can all agree looks to be GameFreak's biggest side game project to date. A lot of people were arguing with me saying that Town development wasn't affecting Sword and Shield, but it turns out not only was this correct, but I was actually underestimating the effect that it's having. In reality, it turns out it's actually a priority here. As I've said before, if GameFreak allocated the time, resources, and people it's investing into Town into Sword and Shield, we wouldn't have things like the graphical problems, lack of Mega Evolutions, lack of National Dex, etc. These things would be easily possible to complete with the full power of GameFreak's 150 or so employees, or at least way more than what are currently being used for Sword and Shield. The weird thing is, we all know Pokemon is going to be way more profitable and have a greater impact on the lives of millions of people than any other side game that they create. Not to mention the fact that this is exactly when they should be focusing on Pokemon the most. A new generation on the home console for the first time. Something which fans have been desperately waiting to experience for years, if not decades. So in light of this new information, what in the world could be the reason for this super enhanced focus on the side games? After all, there can no longer be any debate that this is the problem that Sword and Shield is having. GameFreak is simply diverting its resources away and into other side games purposefully and with the utmost priority, as said by an employee of GameFreak himself. Without this diversion, there would be no lack of quality or content in the new Pokemon games because there would be enough resources to fix the problems that fans are overtly pointing out with the games. Or, better yet, these problems wouldn't have existed in the first place. In terms of answering this question, I'm going to stick with what I've said all along. GameFreak is losing influence in the Pokemon Company because of the success of Pokemon Go, and the company's newfound focus on mobile gaming, and GameFreak needs a safety net. I think they've realized that so long as they get a new generation and a new Pokemon game out there every couple of years, it will sell enough to at least be profitable. But now, they wish to branch out and make something new, and in the words of Inoue himself, create something that is equally exciting or more exciting than Pokemon. It seems to be a combination of these two factors, a bit of complacency knowing that Pokemon will sell even if all of GameFreak's efforts aren't put into it, and having a Plan B series of games in case GameFreak continues to lose importance within the Pokemon Company. Anyway, there it is everyone, proof that Pokemon is in the backseat in terms of GameFreak's priorities, and more evidence towards the overall theory that we've been developing. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe with notifications on so you're the first to see new videos, and so you don't miss future uploads. Make sure to let me know what you think about the interview, what Inoue said, and what this means for the future of the Pokemon franchise. Before we go, I do want to give a quick plug to my Twitter page where I talk more about my thoughts and keep you guys updated on video progress, and my Discord server where we've got an awesome Pokemon community that loves to chat all about these topics. If you're interested in joining along with either one, the links will be in the description below, so be sure to check them out. Anyway, thanks so much for watching everyone, this has been Spectre, and I'll see you guys next time for some more Pokemon content.